Hey everybody, welcome to Service Level, curious conversations about the Black and queer experience. I'm one of your hosts, Damon, and today, Jordan, Tony, and I are discussing the language used regarding STIs and HIV. They asked the girls, like, are the girls really using condoms?
Yeah, let's talk about that. Who's supposed to be prepared with
I
what?
don't know.
Everybody's supposed to be prepared with whatever they want to have.
You know, I'm HIV positive, and so that put another lens and level of a heightened awareness and sensitivity to being exposed to an STI because I'm just like, I already have HIV.
I have a really big disdain for health reads. For people
Oh,
who
God.
get online in an effort to like tear somebody down.
You need to be an open book with your doctor.
Don't be in there lying to your
Right.
doctor.
You need to be an open book. You need to be, if they asking you what kind of sex you having,
Right.
you need to tell them everything.
This is, are you clean? Okay.
Oh, that title
Ick.
brings back so many triggering memories.
Yep.
Mhm.
The girls say any fucking thing.
They sure do.
But continuing on with Throb, our season of sex, we're going to tackle the STI combo today. But before we go a bit deeper, let's stay on the surface. And we're going to have some thoughts from a bit of a community conversation that's been happening.
Mhm.
So there was a video reposted about condom usage. So I'm going to read some of the comments
Okay.
from under. They asked the girls, like, are the girls really using condoms?
Yeah.
And then we'll like, I'm gonna read some things and y'all react. Let me know what it brings up for you. So one of the people said, are y'all using condoms for sucking too? Because if not, you may as well go bare all the way.
Ooh.
Yeah,
What do we
It's-
feel about?
What does it make? What does it come to mind?
I ain't never used a condom. A condom. I can't even say it. What?
I don't even know what that is.
I ain't never used the condom to suck no dick.
Yeah, I haven't either.
I mean, there are also, those are varying levels of risk, but let's not get into that. Next one, on a similar note, yeah, I definitely use flavored condoms. I will not do oral without them. So, Tony, you want to like a green apple flavored?
Wrap a fruit roll up around it.
Make a
I don't
mistake
think-
and bite into it.
I don't think.
That's start playing tricks on your brain. We're getting old where we need to start sending the right signals to the brain.
It is a popsicle. It's starting to melt.
Oh my God! Ouch!
Bitch.
I'm hurting.
All right, let's just keep. I don't think there's anything left to say on that one. Okay. Somebody else said, yo, it's crazy how I carry condoms in my bag when I'm about to go to a hookup. Never use them, though. Jesus help me. That's the crazy part.
That's interesting.
I think it's, even
Admirable.
well, no, I think even if you maybe don't prefer to use, I think there's a value in having it with you because you may get to a destination and they may prefer it.
Right.
And the last thing I need to be doing is like now we trying to go to the bodega trying to figure out which bodega got it.
Well, I feel like if you use them, you should. That would be strange.
What?
If you
use condoms and then you like, oh, we got to run out and get some.
but maybe
What kind of house is
I
this?
mean, maybe they're expecting.
That sounds crazy.
Because
Right.
it depends on which role they're playing. If they're bottoming or topping, right?
Don't matter if you. Like,
Yeah, let's
you
talk
should
about that. Who's supposed to be
Well,
prepared
bitch,
with
I
what?
don't know.
Everybody's supposed to be prepared with whatever they want to have. So if you feel like there should be condoms no matter what you're doing, then you should have them.
and all the varying sizes.
Hello?
Because I'm just asking.
Whatever you need over there.
I
No,
mean,
they may not know the person's size. So you get there and I got this. What's that? What's the big one?
The Magnum.
The Magnum,
Yeah.
and then the person's
like, where's the boyfriend size?
Swimming in it.
That's not what we want.
That's not what we want.
They're trying to be fishing that
not
condom
an
out of you.
oversized condom.
We need it to be snug.
Oh my God. Child, I've had condoms in my travel bag. They just been in there.
Expired.
Do they expire?
Yes, they do.
Oh.
Please check your condoms.
What condoms?
So then someone said Trojan bear skins are the best ones.
Oh.
So in a scenario where you do, like, I have this skin, they're called like
Skin.
Yeah, those are
With a Y?
yeah with a Y.
Okay. I've seen
Those-
that branding.
I said I haven't experienced it,
Many moons ago.
but I've seen the branding.
Many moons.
Love the logo.
Such good branding.
Such good branding. Any no, so no, she definitely have a recommended condom brand.
No, I mean I've had experience with those as well. The skin, and then is skin and bare skin two different ones.
What I think.
What
I don't know.
about barely there?
What's that?
What's that?
The one I just came up with.
Barely there by service level. Order now.
Well, we did have our own brand of condoms.
We did.
Oh, we did have
Yeah,
condoms.
we did.
What do we do with those?
We gotta,
We.
I have so that
Oh, we
I
use
have
them for a photo shoot.
I still have
Yeah, but I feel like
a
we-
Nickelodeon from Real Monsters, the one that held the eyeballs
Mm-hmm.
in his hands, and it's sitting on my desk, and his mouth is open, and the condoms are stuffed in it.
Well, those are definitely expired.
Those are expired, and they just sitting there. Yeah, I it's kind of like I gotta pull them back out and see what. Not for use. just. I'm gonna
Take a walk down
some
memory lane.
content. I'm gonna take some content. Put them up in the stories.
Throw them up in the stories, child.
Oh, we should do that for this season.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I mean,
That's the most use them condoms gonna get.
I have them. So
Bitch, y'all into that?
You
Now
are
that tickled me. Oh my god. Well, I'm glad we were able to laugh because before having a more serious conversation.
you are coming undone.
I'm tickled. Ooh. Okay, I'm back. So, talking about safe sex or safer sex or protecting ourselves and all the things in the world that we have to think about being responsible sexual adults. So we're going to start here. So how do you approach starting conversations around testing and status with new partners? And does that vary when you're thinking about ongoing partners? Jordan.
So for new partners, I'll admit the conversation is pretty haphazard. I don't feel like for me, it hasn't been like a requirement. Just because I think that a lot of my new partners have been sourced through apps. And a lot of the apps give you the flexibility to be able to indicate anything around status and testing cadence and all of that type of stuff. And so it kind of takes away some of the necessity in my eyes to have like a verbal conversation about things. I will say that as, you know, what mostly qualifies me having a conversation is if I feel like I want to stop maybe taking some preventative measures on my end. So, for example, if I'm with a partner and at this point we're kind of having like a very consistent cadence and maybe I'm considering just being a bit more monogamous with that person, I'll have a conversation with them about, you know, status and testing and stuff like that, because maybe I will want to not take PrEP every day. And so the way that I enter into those conversations are very simple. I don't know. I don't really at this point, I don't feel like I really put like a lot of thought in like the strategy behind it. I'm just kind of more so like very upfront about it. Like, you know, like how often are you getting tested? Do you go to a primary care physician? I also kind of like start with my practices to just sort of like put that out there so that they can like more so react to it. Maybe if they're not really used to having the conversations. But I typically, when it's more of a like impromptu partner or just kind of like a one-off partner, I sort of just like take it as my responsibility to sort of protect myself as much as I can. And then if I feel like I want to relax my own preventative measures, then I have a more explicit, detailed conversation with a partner.
I feel like for me, with new partners, I've either, if I'm asking, I would just say like, when's the last time you've been tested? And if I'm being asked, I usually get the same kind of question, like, when's the last time you've been tested? And having that like kind of upfront, or the age old, you good? Because that's how, I mean, in regular like everyday language, that's how it would be asked. And for me, I've felt that a lot of times people are just saying what you want to hear. I don't think I've been in a situation where I've asked someone and they've actually told me like that they're they haven't gotten tested, or that they aren't good, or they've disclosed any kind of sexual history as it relates to an STI or HIV status. I don't think I've really gotten like an honest
Mm-hmm.
response. Now, when I think of ongoing partners, it's more of a comfortability level there. We ask the same question, ask the question in the same way, but it's an ongoing level of like trust with that person. If we are engaging, kind of like if it's a fuck buddy, someone that's like a regular in your life, it's making sure that for me, I'm taking care of my sexual health, and I would expect them to do the same, because I look at it as we are all responsible for our own sexual health.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that in mind, I have to come to the table knowing what I've done to make sure that I'm taking the measures to be good.
Yeah.
Now I do maintain though that if we know we're going to have unprotected sex, that you should be making sure that you are regular with your doctor. And I think with the advancement of medicine, though, I wonder if you guys feel the same. I feel like the question doesn't really come up anymore nowadays. No one's asking. I don't know when's the last time. Well, recently I haven't had a lot of new sexual partners. But prior to being in a relationship, I'm like, no one asked the question anymore. When's the last time you've been to? I haven't heard that in a while.
You run into me then.
Yeah, I just feel like it's like the conversation is happening less and less. Like condom usage is happening less and less.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say that. In my practice, like I just say that's all. I'm like, okay, I'm negative. I'm on hormone prep. I was tested at X date.
Mm-hmm.
I also have a doxy prescription, and like I feel like when I just throw something that out there as like normal conversation, like people, it becomes like a little less stigmatized. Like people just come back with actual conversations, and sometimes like it's less about like some wild scenario, but sometimes people, like typically you should get tested every 3 months at least.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone's like, oh, I was tested 2 months and 3 weeks ago, I'm just like, well, maybe we're at the tail end of that time period. So maybe I don't want to engage in this right now until you're tested again. And I feel like that's more of like the judgment calls that had the experiences of making, more so than like hard no's and yeses and so forth.
Right. Well, in terms of the bridging, like the having the conversation, right? And I don't know if this applies to the apps, but I do want to share some tools to listeners. So Dr. Eveline Dacker, she's a family physician and sex educator. She developed a framework to help you start these conversations. And not just about STIs, but an holistic approach to physical intimacy. And she calls it STARS. That's an acronym. So it stands for sexual health, like when were you last tested? Have you tested positive for something, turn-ons? What are you sexually into? What turns you on? What would you be open to trying or not, and when? Avoids, what would you like to avoid? Relationship intentions and expectations. For example, maybe you're not looking for monogamy. Like, can we have that conversation openly? And then safety needs. What do you need to feel safe physically, emotionally, etc.? And so I think all of these things are like really important dialogue to have. And I feel like I've had this without knowing this method. Like when I got into, I'm HIV positive. And so once I was diagnosed HIV positive, and once I've begun to tell people, then I started dating before I got my current relationship, I was very upfront and just being like, this is, I'm HIV positive. And I found that it was a weight lifted off because it kind of disarmed them also to be able to tell me like if they have anything going on. And also as it relates to just other sexual things, having like turn-ons, avoids and stuff like that. People aren't talking about sex, but people want to have it. And when people aren't having good sex, a lot of times because they're not talking about it.
Yeah.
So
just in there fumbling around with somebody you don't know at all. I'm just like, that's like, I think it's hard to talk about sex and what you like and what you don't like, and it makes for a more enjoyable experience versus like, let's just get on here on vibes, girl.
Well, I think that, like, so the three of us, we have a really strong relationship with our primary care physician, but I feel like healthcare is a disparity, obviously. And I'm just wondering, because the conversation comes up like, "Are you good?" And they're just like, "Yeah, I'm good." And I never really know what that means. Like, does that mean that like you haven't experienced any symptoms and you don't feel like anything's off, or does that mean that
That's probably what it
there's a
means.
receipt? You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, yeah, I think that what you just laid out from that family doctor is very, very helpful. Those have not been the conversations that I've had, like in depth. I feel like the conversations have been just kind of like a flyover. And my approach has been just like, am I doing everything that I can do to protect myself and just take on the risk of just having sex?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of it is also the idea of having to go off of someone's word and hoping that they're telling you the truth. And so that's why it goes back to like making sure that you're doing everything you can to protect your own sexual health.
Yeah. Speaking about sexual health, so if a situation does arise and you test positive for an STI, how has that or how would that affect your perception of your partner or partners? Like a lot of times people are like, such and such gave me this, and now they like. Do you feel like it changes how you look at a certain person?
More than how I look at anyone else, I get annoyed with my damn self because it's just like, damn it. Like, again, I said it, I'm HIV positive. And so that put another lens and level of a heightened awareness and sensitivity to being exposed to an STI because I'm just like, I already have HIV. And so, like, I would just be like, the real walk of shame is like, for me, it felt like going to a clinic or the doctor and having to get treated for something. And it's always made me feel like irresponsible as fuck. And not necessarily thinking about who gave me what because I'm doing the damn thing. I'm an equal participant in the thing. I've just felt that way. And I've had to work on my own perception of sex and my relationship with it over time. And one of the things that I found was that it's a quote from Audre Lorde, and she says that nothing I accept about myself can be used against me to diminish me. And that spoke wonders to me because before having that quote, I would always say, I was navigating around the fact that if someone finds out, if I tell someone that I'm HIV positive, if I disclose my deepest, darkest secret, what's the worst that can happen? And the worst that can happen is I die. And I'm not going to die by living in my truth and speaking my truth. So that's just kind of been like that quote for me really hit the nail on the head for me. And just navigating from a space of knowing that there's always some level of risk with sex generally. Like there's no 100% foolproof anything. Like you can't just jump inside of a damn bubble.
You could. But the girls are not jumping in that bubble anymore.
Yeah.
Get you a dental dam.
Yeah. And then the last thing a dental dam. Now you eating pussy with a dental dam. So the last thing I will say is that in the past, I really didn't feel like I had the language. The name of this episode is "Are You Clean?" And that in and of itself is something that's problematic language to use because
stop it.
It's like saying, if you're not clean, then what are you?
Right.
Dirty. And that's not healthy. Like anyone who has any kind of STI who is ever that's most people. And no one's dirty.
Yeah.
And so we should stop using that language. And I didn't really, I never really thought about it until having my own experiences and being aware of how other people are talking about STIs. Like when you said, like somebody gave me this and that and the third, it's like,
It's like we chose to do something
yeah.
that had a level of risk.
Mm-hmm.
There are consequences that we are both now dealing with,
Yeah.
and we should deal with them responsibly. The end.
Yeah.
It takes a level of maturity, and most people aren't that evolved.
I mean, I have a really like I have a really big disdain for health reads for
Yeah.
people
Oh,
who
God.
get online and in an effort to like tear somebody down, they want to come for whatever their sex history around health and all that stuff. And I just feel like that's just like a really I just hate that. And the very first time that I contracted a STD was in college, actually. And a partner that I had reached out to me and was just like, I tested positive for this. I wanted to let you know, like, you should get tested too. I'm sorry that this happened. And in that moment, I was like, thank you for telling me. You know what I mean? Like, that was the only thing that I felt. Not the only thing. I was actually like very nervous because I didn't. It was my first time, and I was also not out, so I didn't have anybody I could talk to about it. And it was just sort of like I was dealing with that experience alone and having to go to a clinic alone and not having a friend that I can talk to about it. And it just felt. I was very thankful that he told me because he didn't have to.
Yeah.
I could have just found out on my own. But where it got complicated for me is that I actually had another partner that I had within like a 2-week span. And so I reached out to them to let them know, like, hey, someone reached out to me and told me that they tested positive and I'm getting tested. You should get tested too. And that person had a completely different reaction to it. And basically did what this title was. The title of this episode was like shamed me, called me dirty, called me a hoe, called me a slut, called me all of these things. And that was my very first experience, you know what I mean, as like a teenager. And so I think that influenced how I
How
didn't.
did that shape your?
Yeah, it reflected how I never wanted to make somebody else feel. Like I truly did feel like shit. You know what I mean? Like I was already feeling shame, like when I got the first phone call, and then it was magnified when I had the second phone call. And I felt like because I've had that very direct experience so early on, I never really wanted to have that experience with someone else. And so I think that when those situations happen, I take it with like a level of like compassion and like trying to at least like soothe the person that, you know, it's okay. Like, this is what happened. Like, I'm trying to be matter of fact about it. I don't want to seem like it's like this big scary thing.
Yeah.
And also, you know, I just feel like everybody should know that information. You know what I mean? To be able to take control of their own health. So I try to balance it like that. Now, if I felt like, you know, I maybe wanted to wear protection in an interaction and then like maybe I was, you know, persuaded to not to, like I can maybe deal with my own levels of frustration, like you mentioned, like being like upset with myself. But I think that, you know, as an adult, it's your responsibility. Like you can take control of the situation and you can put measures in place to make sure that you can minimize the risk.
Yeah.
So
I feel like those are like the type of people you want to be engaging in sexual activity with are the type of people who are upfront, transparent, talking about it. Like I have so much more respect for someone that lets me know something so that I can be informed to take care of myself.
Yep.
And that's gonna make me like have more trust and respect.
Yeah.
And I want to be involved with people who are like that because it's important. I don't know that I would love to hear from listeners what their experiences are around this topic, because I know it's just it's a spectrum for sure. And it evolves, I think, from when you're younger to after you had a lot more experience. What does that look like now, present day, or for those who are younger right now, we know some folks 10 years our junior, and I'm curious for them,
Yeah.
because I think they've evolved in that a lot quicker than we have, which
Yeah.
is a natural thing. So I'm curious if they are having these type of like really mature adult conversations sooner and earlier than we were.
I think also media perception is a big thing. So I think specific to the topic of HIV, like when we think about it's kind of looked at like the big bad. And even like me and my husband were watching Drag Race, and one of the queens like publicly talked about their status for the first time. But it was like the minute she started talking about it, they like cued the sad music, like they showed all the reactions, everybody being like, and it was just like
The
I'm like,
drama.
the drama. And I'm like, why are we talking about HIV in this way in 2024? Or like, why are we portraying it that way? And I just want to know, like, what do you all think is the appropriate way, and to kind of talk about it, one from someone living with it, and then also for people that are in your circle, like what is helpful to do? Because that shit was not.
It's strange. You know what? In a world where destigmatizing HIV is the goal, that's absolutely not the appropriate way to
Yeah.
be representing it. Now, is there trauma and sad stories and that are associated with like finding out that you were HIV positive, and like, do people go through a rough time? Absolutely. However, does it mean that it's a death sentence, that you can't live a long, healthy life? No, it doesn't. That doesn't have to be the case. So I feel like, specific to this example with Drag Race, because there's so few
Shows about queer culture.
right. There's not a lot of representation around this topic and this conversation that's healthy. And I know that's like an Emmy Award-winning show. That's one of the things that if anyone out there could hear this piece of feedback, it's like that's not what the producers should have chosen, how they should have chosen to like display that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think like we have to talk about find ways to talk about HIV the same way we talk about other chronic illnesses. So, for example, if someone, it's like, I was diagnosed as diabetic.
Mm-hmm.
There's medicine. You live as diabetic. Such and such has diabetes. The end. Like, there's not, like, you don't cue the sad music.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you take it seriously because there are serious health repercussions to it and changes you have to make to, like, your lifestyle or a medicine regimen, so on and so forth. Like, we take that part seriously, but there isn't this, like, dark cloud over the diagnosis and how we interact with said person. And I think that we somehow have to change our thinking around things like HIV, because it's a similar thing. It's a chronic illness. You can't necessarily get rid of it, but medicine has advanced in a way where you can manage it and live a healthy life where you are unaffected from it and live undetectable. And I think that's the thing that's important. Like, we can't keep framing it as the same diagnosis as it was in the 80s and early 90s. And I think that's the thing, particularly that like we found frustrating watching a queer platform not have that level of nuance in how we're talking about it. So
Yeah, because it's furthering the shame of it all, and that's what we're trying to get away from.
yeah.
I have a slightly different opinion about it. I think that the appropriate way for HIV to be discussed in the media, I think, is dependent on the person delivering the message. I think that whatever is most authentic to how they want to communicate or disclose that information to the public, they should have the freedom to do it however they feel is most natural for them. So, for example, season 2, episode Undetectable, Tony, you used that episode to disclose your status publicly for the first time. And it was emotional. You know what I mean? There was, misty eyes in the studio and stuff like that. And it's because, you were sharing something deeply intimate to you. And you like, yeah, there was a sigh of relief for you, but there was also, you had to revisit that experience of, when you were, first diagnosed and you got the information and then working your way through it. And so I'm not super familiar with the clip that you're talking about from Drag Race. I'm not sure if the person who shared their status was actually communicating something that was actually sad, minus the music and the production around it. But I think that when you're dealing with reality programming, podcasts, and things like that, if someone is sharing their status, I don't think that they should feel like it's their responsibility to share it through a public lens because they feel like they owe it to the master narrative of HIV. Now, I do think that if we are talking about scripted series or people who are creating stories that include themes of HIV, I do think that as storytellers, we should be actively figuring out ways in which we can position HIV as a more normalized conversation and not always the sob story. But I do think there probably will be times where people share their HIV story and it will evoke emotions of sadness for them. And I feel like we should hold space for that still.
Yeah. But I also think, like, one, a lot of reality shows ain't that fucking real. So I think the choices that producers make on them, I think, help tell a story that may not even be authentic to, like, what the person is talking about.
Like the producers said,
like it's just
let
like,
us know.
it's like fade to black. The sad music comes on. They like cut to clips of people doing these like weird reactions, like, and it just it becomes this whole package of we're packaging the story up in this way.
Yeah,
even though
that
it's reality
that I
TV.
don't like.
And that this particular clip, it was just like, why was this the choice? Because the funny part is not funny, but like the interesting part was that we were watching the same episode, and it comes up again later in the episode, and it's the same person talking about it in a similar way.
Yeah.
But then the framing of it later in the episode is like much lighter. It's more matter of fact. It's more like, it's just like, why did we not? Why are we doing these two different ways?
Yeah.
And like, it's just like, it just framed in a way that was just like, it's just a person talking about their health in a way that is honest, and it's not this person talking about dying in the same way that if someone told you they were positive in 1991. And I think that's the framing that was put on it, which I think reality or scripted really needs to change.
Yeah.
So, moving on, like we talk a lot in this episode, it's come up about things that we've learned over our time and since being teens to now in our mid-30s. So what advice would you give to a baby gay navigating conversations about being exposed to an STI? If you could go back to...
I mean, for starters, I would say check your pulse. Are you still breathing?
You still breathe? It's going to be all right, baby.
Okay.
Step
That's
one.
number one. Let's inhale and let's exhale, because it's not the end of the world. It really isn't. And you might feel like it is, because that is a real, like a real feeling that might come over you. It's just like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? How am I gonna get through this? And there's like, medicine has truly come. It was already advanced and like come a long way 10 years ago, and like especially today, I'm just like, there's a lot of options. There's a lot of information out there. I still stand by individuals being responsible for their own health, and everyone needs to do that job for themselves, because it's no one else's job to do. I think if it's hard to navigate and figure out, you might want to find people to talk to, whoever you can find that you trust and that you feel like can get you information, because sometimes it's scary to figure out who that might be. Is it a family member? Is it a friend? But talking to someone does help, because it allows you to get it out of yourself, out of your system. It also allows other people to be put in position to support you, which I think is important. So yeah, get informed, do your reading, and also I would challenge folks to not become part of stigmatizing STIs and HIV. Like, be careful of the words that you use to discuss it. Be careful of how you're talking about it as it relates to you and how you talk about it as it relates to other people. That's one thing that I would want to challenge folks, is to just be more mindful of their words and knowing that there's impact and weight behind that. So,
Yeah.
I would start off by letting them know that what they're experiencing is very, 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 very common. And although people aren't necessarily broadcasting this information about themselves, a lot of people are experiencing it. And so I think my first course of action with a baby gay would be like, you are so like in great company, actually. Like there is a lot of people who are experiencing what you're experiencing right now. And, you know, thanks to modern medicine, there's a lot of ways in which you can move about and either cure things completely or treat things to the point that it doesn't impact your health at all. So starting there, I think that what I would have wanted, you know, as somebody who was, you know, had a harsh reaction to sharing that information when I was just a teenager, I would recommend that you visit this website called tellyourpartner.org. I love what they're doing. Essentially, you can send an anonymous text message to a sexual partner that you have to inform them that they've been exposed to something. And it's very easy. You type in their phone number, you check box the different infections, and then you actually verify your phone number so they make sure that there's no like abuse of the system going on. And then so you have to like upload, or you have to like put your phone number and get a verification code, put that in just to make sure that you're not like, you know, using it as spam.
right.
And then the person gets a message, an anonymous message that lets them know you may have been exposed to X, Y, and Z. And then they email or they text them resources to learn more about risk prevention and different clinics in their area. And so the reason why I feel like a resource like that is so important is because the reality is that we aren't beyond stigma around STI and STD. And I think that, yes, I do believe that it's your responsibility to look out for your sexual health, but also if they're a baby gay that's coming up to me, I also want to encourage them to take on the mindset that it's a mutual responsibility, it's a shared responsibility, and that, you know, information is incredibly important and powerful for other people as well. I'm so grateful for the first person that I had that, you know, called me and let me know that they tested positive for this, because it gave me the power to be able to go out and get tested, because a lot of people don't necessarily experience symptoms immediately. So you might have contracted something and may be moving as business as usual, not really knowing that anything is there. Right. And something could be happening internally that, you know, you should be, you know, seeing a doctor and figuring out how to address. So I would do that for a baby gay who maybe is struggling with ideas of like shame, or maybe had a history of trauma around sharing that information. But I would encourage them to exhaust your resources to be able to, yes, take care of yourself, but also take care of your neighbor.
Yeah. Just a couple things I would say. First, really take advantage and look up free resources in many areas, particularly in New York, or and a lot of cities have great community-led organizations that offer free resources around prevention, testing, so on, so forth. Second, I would say, don't be ashamed if you in the clinic. Be proud you in the clinic. Like, not proud that like you have to be there, but like be proud that you are taking the steps to protect yourself and protect those around you. And like there's this like I remember like being younger, and I'm like, I'm gonna go to the clinic in Harlem. I hope don't nobody I know see me.
Oh my God.
I'm just like, you know what I actually hope? I hope that I'm not just running around with people and giving out all types of gifts they don't want. And
That's a thing. I'm just thinking about that though, like seeing other people and
That
like,
happened to me.
we're just like, yikes.
I'm just like, I take it in the same way that like there are all these
what you here
places,
for?
but we hit it. You in it too,
Right.
and like I think that. But to me, I'd rather see somebody I know there and be like, okay, good, you're taking responsibility for your body as well. And I think that's more so the thing that we need to think about versus like, oh my God, I can't believe we're here. It's just like, oh great, we're both either getting tested, getting treated, or getting some type of resource to better protect ourselves. Because those are the options at the clinic.
Well, I mean, because I'm thinking about like a what's it called? Medical MD? What's the place?
WebMD?
WebMD?
No, City MD.
City MD.
Yes.
Where you go in there. It's not, you might see someone but you could be going in there for anything, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I was in there for
no,
COVID.
knowing the gays.
I'm sorry, if you at the Chelsea Clinic, we all in there.
That's where I actually saw somebody that I recognized.
I would also say then this may come off funny, but if you have the slightest possibility that you may have done something irresponsible with your butt, go get tested. Do not wait for symptoms.
Yeah, that
because-
takes much longer.
What?
So in the same way that you can like have symptoms, like say you get symptoms with something in the front, it's just like, oh, there's discharge.
Mm-hmm.
You can have very painful symptoms with the butt if you like don't, because like sometimes a lot of times there aren't symptoms that you can see or whatever. So like if you've done
gotcha.
something and you're just like, maybe I didn't know that person that well, go get tested immediately.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to wait for the symptoms.
Because the thing is, so what's the like the incubation period where it's like if you have sex today,
It's like 2 weeks
might
depending
not-
on certain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like within that,
Yes. Go get that thing checked out and don't just be like, I feel fine, but until you don't, can be very painful.
Yeah. Well, that's what I think, and that's what I think drives some folks that are like scared of the doctor. They will. It will be. The forcing function becomes when it's like, ouch.
Right.
You know. I mean, every time I pee, it's burning, or
Just like now I'm shitting razor blades.
Oh,
It's just like,
I didn't need that picture. That sounds painful.
and then along the lines of that though, and this is specific for like the Black community in general, but then also as being someone who's queer in the community, like you need to be an open book with your doctor.
don't be in there lying to your doctor.
Right.
You need to be an open book. You need to be, if they asking you what kind of sex you having, you need to tell them everything so that they can
Test you for everything.
you for
Give you all
everything.
the swabs.
Yeah, because like I know people, and that's just a Black thing, but also like specifically with being this conversation, you might feel like you don't want to be judged, and it's like you're at the doctor needs to know.
This is not the time.
I got
to-
another piece of advice because I also find that sometimes particularly if I go to a straight physician and I'm getting like tested, they don't always give me like an anal swab. And I'm just like, I'll ask for it. I'm like, no, we're going to do that too. So that's something you should
do
know.
Anal, oral.
Because they see a guy, they don't immediately think like, oh, he needs to do that too. And I'm just like, nope, give me that. You know what to do? I surely do. Swab, take it, break it, put it in a thing. And that is all the time we have this week. If you enjoyed this episode, let's keep the conversation going. Let us know your thoughts and questions at surfacelevelpodcast.com. And remember, stay curious.